Hey, I'm Matt Manny. Thanks so much for joining me for session number 4, The Perfect Recipe for Hospitality. I hope you've enjoyed these sessions as we've gone through and looked at the biblical basis for hospitality, looked at the framework for hospitality, Jesus' heart for hospitality, and how gathering around a table is extremely powerful to help people develop not just a trust with us, but to ultimately develop a trust in God, and that the act of hospitality can really break down those walls where strangers become friends and friends become family, and ultimately to be a part of the family of God. In this 4th session, we're going to look at how we can go ahead and really work together, and it's the perfect recipe. If, again, you're saying, well, I understand, like, I don't feel like I have a space or place, I don't have a home that's good for hospitality, we've addressed that issue, that you can make hospitality happen anywhere. We've also talked about the fact that when it comes to hospitality and having all the know-hows and the abilities, that's okay. We looked at some very ordinary people from the Bible who were able to use their opportunity with whatever they had, their home. For Matthew, Peter's family, Zacchaeus at a moment's notice, Mary and Martha worked together. We're really going to focus in on that today, about how hospitality and doing it as a team makes it happen. And so we see these various different ways of ultimately painting this picture for us of how just ordinary hospitality can create these extraordinary moments of connection and engagement to fulfill the Great Commission, to be able to make our lives fuller and richer, and really to develop these relationships in some powerful and amazing ways. As you take a look in your study guides there, we're going to look at this big idea for us. The perfect recipe for hospitality is this: hospitality works best when we work together. That hospitality doesn't have to be something you carry on your shoulders. It doesn't have to be something where you say, I'm just going to shoulder this on my own. Now think about this scenario for just a moment. If someone told you, we're going to have 25 people come over to your home tomorrow, and we need you to go ahead and host and have a meal prepared, how would you feel? I don't care if you're Martha Stewart or the most hospitable person in the world, you probably would say, no, it's not going to happen. The encouraging thing is this: that's not a realistic situation, that's just a hypothetical scenario. But how would you pull that off, though? It would be really difficult to pull off by yourself. Now, you might be able to go ahead and buy all the things, prepare the food, and get all the plates and napkins and all the decorations and everything, and make sure everything's just right, clean the house, clean the space, rent the space, put out the invitations, get everybody ready to go, have little containers for doggy bags, for leftovers, for people to go ahead and have, and to make all this happen. But what if you could make it take place with a team? What if you could get your family involved in hospitality? What if you could get your small group involved with hospitality? What if you could get a few friends of yours that you're close with, maybe a care group, with hospitality? What if, as a group of neighbors, you could go ahead and host something for the neighborhood for hospitality? What if you could work together as a team? We're going to talk about that today. We see this, that when it comes to hospitality, there's 3 keys to hospitality, and we're taking this from our good friends again over at Front Yard Mission. I love what they talk about here. We see, first of all, the first key for hospitality is this: you got to pray about it. Before you ever plan on doing hospitality, you have to pray for what you're about to do. It's a spiritual matter, a very spiritual matter. Pray for your potential guests, neighbors, friends, coworkers, new acquaintances. We have to pray first for them. We find, second of all, the second step is this: love always. Demonstrate love in simple and practical ways. Giving them some extra food that you have left over is going to help them know, hey, this person can cook a decent meal, or hey, they're willing to share, or I'm not intruding in their life, but showing them love in a practical way. And then last of all is to invite often. Invest and invite people into your home, a space, or a place to gather for hospitality. And so again, you don't have to have somebody in your home. You can extend an invitation and go have coffee somewhere with them. You can go ahead and say, hey, do you want to go to this restaurant or this place or wherever it might be, to be able to have a cup of coffee, meet in the park, and just have a chance to go ahead and make a connection there with them. But again, it's this understanding to pray about it, that breaks down those barriers between us and God, of God, I don't think I can do this. But the more that you pray about it, and you pray specifically for people, all of a sudden now it's going to put them on your radar. If in the moment you see a neighbor and you haven't been praying for them, you haven't been thinking about inviting them over, you're never going to see a neighbor and go, hey, I think I should have them over for a meal, unless maybe you're just wired that way. Naturally, you're gregarious and you like to spend time with people. But if you're not, and that's why you're going through this study to kind of gain some understanding of how to do that, if you pray about it, it's going to be on your radar. And so the next time you see somebody, you're going to think, man, I should take a meal to them. Or what can I do? Maybe I can take a gift card and drop it off at their house so that they can have just a little bit of encouragement for whatever they're going through. And then ultimately work into, hey, would you like to come over for a meal? And just spend some time together. I have no ulterior motive. I'm not trying to get you to buy into a multi-level marketing scheme or anything like that. I'm not trying to go ahead and win one over on you and to drop the Bible and bang you over the head with it. I'm just simply, I like people. I like my neighbors. I want to show love to my neighbors. And this is a practical way to do this, through hospitality. We see, once again, to review, the way to create a perfect hospitality experience. The Eshel approach is really simple and it's easy to remember, and you won't forget it. First of all, food. Have food, prepare a meal. Number 2, drink. Have something for people to drink. Sometimes, Amanda, when we have guests over to our home, she'll ask them ahead of time, hey, what is something that you like, what kind of soda or tea or lemonade or whatever it is, what do you like to drink? And then we'll make sure that we have that for people. It's amazing, just even that little tip there. If you find out what people enjoy drinking, whether they like to drink soda or lemonade or a special kind of a sparkling water or whatever it is. We've had guests over, and when they come and they sit down and they see, we have good friends of ours, they like Coke. And so we'll always make sure we have a bottle of Coke on hand, especially for when they're coming over. And it just, I remember the first time putting that 2-liter of Coke in front of my friend, he just kind of relaxed. That's okay. And ice cold glass of Coca-Cola. And it was like this is like a Coca-Cola commercial, you know? And so just relax, just totally relax. Now think about for you, you're going into a strange space, a strange place, and your favorite cup of coffee or creamer, and you have that coffee, you have that drink, the lemonade or tea or whatever it might be, and it just kind of relaxes you and calms you and prepares you to go ahead and be able to engage. And then third, if you remember, comfort, provide a welcoming environment. Boy, this is really easy and it's key. Have some quiet worship music playing, or even some instrumental or piano music, or whatever your taste is that you like, or whatever you know the people like that are going to be coming to your home. But again, it's just anywhere we go in culture, whether we go shopping or sitting in a restaurant or out to eat, or just our everyday lives, there's always music playing in the background. And again, that just kind of sets the setting for people to encourage them just to kind of be relaxed. Again, maybe having a candle that's burning that smells good. Maybe you have, make sure comfortable seating for people. If you've got a broken chair, hey, maybe fix the chair, or don't have the chair out. We've had that happen before, where broken pieces of furniture don't do well, things like that. But just making the place comfortable for people. If it's in the wintertime, make sure that you've got the heat going so people feel warm. If it's in the summertime and it's hot, that's nice and cool out for people as well. And so we find, just make it comfortable for people. Then we wrap up with this for this portion. You don't have to do hospitality alone. You don't have to bear up under this burden. And how do we gather together and work as a team? Well, first of all, the first step is this: discover your hospitality type. Discover your hospitality type. I love personality tests. I love understanding personality types, if you will. And what we've done is we've broken this down into 4 simple different types that really different personalities or different approaches to hospitality can really fit into. Well, we're breaking the method, or we're trying to debunk the myth, if you will, the myth of, well, if I'm not naturally hospitable, then I don't really have to have people over, so I get a pass on this, right? But God has gifted you and people around you and that you're close to with different abilities to go ahead and come together. And when you come together and work as a team, you can create some incredible moments that people will never forget. And so let's jump in here and look. The first hospitality type is this: the host. The host is someone who initiates, facilitates, and invites. They kind of lead from the front, if you will. We see these kind of individuals throughout the Bible. Matthew was a host. He was the one who initiated and said, Jesus, come over to my home. And he put out the invite to his friends and to the other disciples. Zacchaeus, again, a host, he initiated this. Lazarus, who was there with them. In John chapter 12, verse 2, it says they had a dinner prepared in Jesus' honor. Martha served, and Lazarus was among those who ate with him. So again, Martha, she didn't necessarily host this. We'll see what role she played here in a moment. Lazarus, we find there, was involved, and he was hosting. And the idea was, many times in Scripture, whoever the host is would sit at the head of the table. We see in Matthew chapter 5, we see that Peter, when he had the folks over to his house and Jesus come to his house, Peter was the host. And again, his mother-in-law, they worked together to go ahead and have hospitality. And so for you, you may not be the one to go ahead and be able to provide the meal, but if you have a house that you've got extra space, or you have a business where you have a meeting room, or maybe you own a coffee shop, or maybe you have connections with people and you say, hey, let's gather together at this location, and you're the one who initiates and facilitates, and you kind of lead that way. It's a great opportunity for you to go ahead and be able to get things started. Another thing that's amazing about this as well, you're also the one who can shut things down. One of the concerns as we've talked to people about hospitality is, what if people stay too long? Like, how do I shut this thing down? Especially if you get somebody who's a talker sitting around your table. What if they feel too comfortable and they feel too at home? How do I get them out of my house? Sometimes that happens. And this is where your host steps in. This is where the host says, hey, this has been so great. We've loved having you here. And they kind of, in a winsome way, in a loving way, they kind of shut the conversation down. Maybe they stand up from the table and they walk over toward the door and kind of start moving the conversation in that direction. We've had folks, there's one guy in particular I can think of at church. His name's Woodley, and he is our host he's a great MC. He has the ability, when we have a big gathering together and it's time to go, he'll whistle and he'll kind of do this number and he'll say, let's wrap it up. Pastor Matt wants to get home, so let's shut the lights out. And so he does that for me, so I don't have to be the bad guy, but he'll go ahead and get things wrapped up. He has no problem doing that, and he's helped me. And so I now say, okay, let's wrap it up. We're done here, to be able to move things on. And so a host can do that for us. The second hospitality type is this, a helper. The person who is the planner, they prepare and they serve. Really kind of the behind the scenes. They are the helper. You see on page 64, John chapter 2, we see that there's a wedding celebration in Cana, and that Jesus' mother, Mary, that she was most likely the wedding coordinator, the wedding planner, because when they ran out of wine, she was the one to come to Jesus and said, hey, can you help us figure this out? She tells the folks that are there that are helping out with the wedding, the servers, she says, whatever Jesus tells you to do, you do it. We see in John chapter 12 that this, again, we talked about just a moment ago, that Mary served at this dinner that was prepared in Jesus' honor. And then again, Matthew chapter 8, that Jesus was at Peter's house, and his mother-in-law, when she was healed, that she stepped in and began to serve everyone. This is not a thing where you say, well, it's just for women in all these cases. This is for whoever has the ability to go ahead and prepare a meal. My dad loves to cook. We've got in our church, we've got several men who do a great job at cooking and preparing meals, and really putting together a great feast for us, especially at some of our gatherings. And so if you've got the ability to prepare and cook and get this going, and then also to get other people involved with you, that's great to be able to do that together. Then we see a hearer. This is somebody who's not good at hosting. They're not really good at helping, but they love chatting. They love talking. They love listening. They're outgoing, engaging. They like to mingle. They're a conversationalist. This would be Mary. When Martha comes to Jesus and says, Jesus, Mary's not helping. And Jesus says, listen, she's sitting and listening and engaging in conversation. And that's what she enjoys doing. That's what she's really good at. And you almost get the sense that Jesus kind of like a wink, like, listen, Martha, you don't really want Mary back there in the kitchen helping to cook things. And so we understand this, that each person has their different ability and gifting. Jesus doesn't scold Martha for serving. He also doesn't scold Mary for listening and for being engaged and keeping the conversation going. If you don't like conversation, boy, you need to find somebody you can team up with that enjoys conversation. In our relationship, for Amanda and I, she doesn't really enjoy sitting down and talking with people in small talk. She would rather be up and about working and preparing and cleaning and doing these different things. She's a doer. She's definitely a doer, and she's a preparer, and she's a fixer, and she loves to serve people. But when it comes to sitting and talking with people, she doesn't enjoy that, and she knows that, and I know that, and that's okay. So many times we'll start off the hospitality. We'll get the house all picked up. We'll light the candle, get the music playing. I'll help her in the kitchen, and we'll get the meal going. And then as soon as we start to have company roll through the door, she'll look at me and point to the front door, and I'll wink. Hey, this is how it goes. And I'll go and I'll sit with folks, and we'll talk and engage until the meal's prepared and ready to go. And we're able to go ahead and engage that way. She'll come and join us at the table, and then as she feels comfortable and begins to engage and talk, and then we have a great time to go ahead and connect over a meal together with our friends, neighbors, and our guests in our home. Then the last one is this. This one is an exciting one. I love this idea, the hugger. I had to have an H, but a hugger. You'll get this. A gift giver, someone who connects through handshakes and hugs and warmth. They're very warm. They're very engaging. They aren't the host, so they're not initiating, they're not behind the scenes, and they're not just listening, they're going a step further, if you will, and they're giving gifts. They bring a gift or they give a gift. If you've ever been to somebody's home and you say, boy, I really appreciate, I love this tea. Well, here, take it with you. I really enjoy this coffee. I've been at a friend's home and said, boy, I really love this coffee. Well, here, take a bag of grounds with you, the coffee with you, enjoy. Those are the people that are huggers or givers, if you will. We look here, John chapter 12, that Mary in this story took a 12-ounce jar of expensive perfume and she gave it away. We see in Luke 7 that we again have this example of the alabaster jar that was filled with expensive perfume and sat behind Jesus and wept and washed his feet. So again, an act of service. We see Matthew chapter 26 in Bethany at the home of Simon, a man who previously had leprosy, that Jesus was eating and a woman came in with a beautiful alabaster jar of expensive perfume and poured it all over his head. So again, these engagements where there's not a lot of talking, there's no food involved, but there's these engagements of hospitality, if you will. As you look there then in your notes as we wrap this up, we see you've got to figure out your hospitality type, which of the four, and maybe you might be a combination of a few, but what would it look like if you discovered your hospitality type and then you work with other people to create the perfect hospitality experience? What if you found someone who was the host, and what if you say, I'm great at preparing a meal, and then you found somebody who was good at conversation, and you found somebody that was really good at providing the entertainment, if you will, the hugger, the person who plays the games and who maybe will do a skit, or maybe who will kind of keep everybody entertained. And you have the four of you work together, and maybe it doesn't have to be four, but you understand that each one of those parts is covered. That's amazing. You don't have to do it by yourself, and you're going to have an opportunity to have a moment of a memory of engagement that people will never forget, whether it's for a Christmas party or a holiday gathering or just a block party in your neighborhood, whatever it might be, however it looks for you in your situation. This is a way so that you can discover and you can live out your way of how God has gifted you to love on other people, to love your neighbor, and to love God in an amazing way. That is the expression of Eshel. That's the expression of hospitality. Spend some time unpacking these thoughts in your discussion questions. Pray for each other. Pray for who you might think about, who God's laid on your heart to have over for a meal, as you begin to take these steps toward making ordinary hospitality become an extraordinary moment that you'll never forget. Thanks for watching.